Hi, folks, and welcome to our new podcast, When I Became a Gator. I'm your host, Phillip Cheng, and our podcast will focus on the stories of various alumni around the country in the hopes of bringing closer the Gator Nation, one alumni at a time. Tonight, we have our very first guest, Phil Kahn. Thank you for being on our show today. We're super excited to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Phil Kahn. Full name is Philippe, which I go by sometimes these days. Class of 1990. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to mess this up. 1998, I believe. I will fess up. We'll get through a lot of this. It did take me 6 years to get that bachelor's degree, of which I'm very proud. So even though I'm the class of 92 for high school, I believe I'm 98. Now I got to check my diploma. It was. I took the extended course.
Yeah.
Graduated with a degree in journalism and telecommunications. Used that to get my first career going, which was a news anchor reporter. Traveled around a good part of the southwest of the country. And did that for 6 years, 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah.
Before getting laid off, quite frankly, right in the aftermath of 9/11, and moved back to California, where I'm from originally, and picked up a career of all things in the automotive industry. Started with what was then the new Mini brand, which was a division of BMW by then, and moved on to BMW, and happy to say that was really quite successful. In those early days, the internet car sales was just beginning to become a thing. I was in Orange County, California, which was in the middle of a huge economic boom, fueled mostly by real estate and cheap mortgages, as we all know now. So it was a very fun time to be in the car business. And even after the crash, those were some of my most successful years. I was actually #1 European delivery salesperson for BMW for 07, 08, and 09. I think 10 as well. But after a dozen years in the car business, went and started my own business with a business partner of mine. It's called Josh Rosebrook Skin and Hair Care. He is Josh Rosebrook. He's the chief creative. It's a personal care, a small brand, an independent brand of personal care products, organic, high-end, luxury, conscious. He's the creative side. I am basically the operational and financial side, and we've been doing that now for going on 8 years. And very happy to say that's going well. I mean, even in these very challenging times, we've grown our business year over year. We're about 20% up.
Oh, that's awesome. There are so many questions I have for you from, being from California. I'm wondering, how did you end up in Florida? And then, you've gone through so many industries. I wonder, how did the University of Florida and your experience there influence that? Impact that, and then our question of the evening is, when you became a Florida Gator, or when you felt like you were a Florida Gator. We're curious about that too, and so I guess take your pick. Maybe you can weave it all into one.
Okay. You're asking how I ended up here. That's a great question. How I ended up in the U.S. at all. I'm Filipino by birth, by nationality, and I was born and raised there. When I was almost 10 years old, 8, 9 years old, my dad got cancer. And so we, as a family, we all moved here to the West Coast so he could have access to better medical care. This was the early 80s, and, he was just going to be better cared for here, definitely. He fought very bravely for a couple of years, but after he passed, I ended up moving to Florida to live with my grandmother for a time with some extended family, and went to high school there, and then went to college there as well.
Okay.
UF was instrumental in my degree and my first career. When I first went to UF, this is going to sound terrible, but I mean, I was 17 years old. I had no idea. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, who knows anything about anything when you're 17? And the paradox, of course, is you think you know everything, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I certainly didn't know anything, and thought that I wanted to be some kind of an engineer, something, you know, technical, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
perhaps even scientific. And after taking college calculus, that fantasy was over. I thought I was a fairly smart kid. I
Yeah.
had done fairly well in the AP classes that went to calculus, did calculus in high school, and you know, thought I had a pretty good, solid GPA and was fairly
Mm-hmm.
smart. Oh my lord! Took that class 3 times, dropped it twice. The third time I got a gentleman's C, and I was just
Yeah.
after that, I thought I would explore journalism and writing a little
Yeah.
bit more. Um, and it was at that point that I remember taking the introductory RTV course, radio and
Mm-hmm.
television course, RTV 1000 with
Mm-hmm.
Tom Krinsky, who I believe is still working and teaching at UF. Maybe not. He may have retired by now.
Yeah.
This was 30 going on 30 years ago now. And he was not a young man then, but he, no joke, changed my life. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, he was. I started working at the radio station at WRUF,
Mm-hmm.
the AM station, and was doing news there. Got into the TV track, and
Mm-hmm.
he had a lot of connections, probably still does, and a lot of small and not so small markets. Got me
Mm-hmm.
placed at in Panama City, WJH GTV, with another fellow Gator who was the news director at the time. And yeah, even at the time, you know, the UF had a legit radio, television, broadcast journalism
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
The shoot, I'm going to forget the name of the journalism school now. But
Weimer. Weimer.
Weimer,
Mm-hmm.
thank you, Weimer Hall, yes. And even back then, Tom Krinsky was a Mizzou grad, so of course he was
Mm-hmm.
partial to their journalism, but school. But I mean, even today, there's a huge alumni network out there, and they do good work, and they
Yeah.
turn out. I can't believe I'm going to say they turn out a good product, but they do. They turn out, you know, good journalists,
Yeah.
and so that was my first trip into the real world. And what a fun, great trip it was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The highlight of that career for me was working, if you can believe this time, I got to tell this story. I never get to tell this story. But I was working in Austin, Texas, right at the time of election 2000.
Oh, wow.
Bush v. Gore, and I did cover crime in courts, and I did get to, you know, at least be in press conferences with then Governor
Mm-hmm.
George W. Bush.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't give me a nickname. We didn't have that kind of a relationship,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I was in the room, you know, and I thought I was kind of a big deal. And
Yeah.
couple of weeks before November, it must have been October or maybe even September of that year, I took a job. I accepted a job
Mm-hmm.
in Tallahassee as the weekend anchor over there and a reporter.
Yeah.
And my last day was supposed to be that election night, November, must have been November 4th or 5th or whatever, but I was slated
Mm-hmm.
to cover the election in Austin. I just had to, that was going to be my notice. And then literally right after the election, I was going to move to Tallahassee and, you know, start my job
Yeah.
there. Little did I know that I was going to go from literally the center of the universe news-wise, at least for U.S. news, in Austin, to what was going to be the center of the universe news-wise for the U.S. for the next month or so, as they fought over, you know,
Mm-hmm.
everything that election 2000 was, and the Brooks Brothers suit riot and all that, and you know, the Supreme Court and Al Gore finally conceding. And so it was, I really felt like the universe was shining on me, you know,
Yeah.
because I had gotten this great reel together showing like I was traveling the country covering Bush, you know, or covering the election.
Right.
And so that was a fantastic experience, which came to an end again right after 9/11. We did go through, I'm not sure if you remember, quite a bit of a recession. And I was the last one hired. So as the rule goes, last in, first out. And it was at that point where I made the transition and just trucked back to California to start over. I was considering maybe, doing the news thing again, but ended up, like I said, working at Mini at the time, and then BMW. I am a car guy at heart. That's a huge passion of mine. So what was gonna be, just kind of a transitory thing ended up being semi-permanent. I mean, I was halfway decent at it, and again, being more technically minded and being more comfortable with the internet and all of that, and the internet department back then was, it was Auto by Tel. Not sure if that means anything to anybody, but that was so primitive.
Yeah.
And to be able to be a part of that and build that and to build the digital marketing for it, it really helped me in ways that I couldn't appreciate then. But when I started my business with Josh, one of the first things I did was I built out our website and I attacked our digital marketing and made sure that people could find us online. And all those skills that I had, discovered and honed for BMW, I was able to use to great effect. And you never, the story is you can never connect the dots looking forward.
Right.
But now you look back and you're like, yeah, I learned how to do this and that and all these other things, and it's all come together. It's not like it's a grand plan, but did that cover? You said where I came from? What's the progression?
And then the last part, as you said, sort of being able to connect all the dots, and looking back, I'm wondering, throughout that entire timeline, before, during, after UF, covering the elections, 9/11, going back to California, I guess, at what moment did you feel like, I'm a Florida Gator? Like, this is, this identity, like, is a part of me.
I've gone over it quite a bit, and I just need to be 100% honest.
Yeah.
And I will say that, being a Florida Gator is not a huge part of my identity. Just want to be honest about that. I mean, if you ask someone, Phil Kahn, what's that guy about? I don't know that Florida Gator is going to come up, in the top 10 things that they list out. I'll just come out and say it. I was young, malleable, a little bit indifferent. Again, prioritized being with my friends and having, that social network and some social support. More than, my extended family who I was living with was in West Palm Beach at the time. So Gainesville was just the right distance away. It was a nice 4.5 hour drive. I could come home for long weekends. I could get laundry done or get a home cooked meal every now and again, but it wasn't like I was still at home.
Right.
And so if I wanted a little bit of independence or to feel independent, that was certainly available there as well. When I think of like my greatest college moments, I mean, I was part of the Greek system. That was a lot of fun. There were definitely a lot of football games. It was a Spurrier era, I should say. Who can complain about that? That was a great time to be a Florida Gator.
When was the last time you were back in Gainesville?
I was back in Gainesville quite recently, just 2 years ago, because my cousin Angeline got her MBA.
Oh, cool.
And so I got to go back to Gainesville.
It was probably a totally different campus.
Totally different campus. And I got to go to the swamp for one last drink. And it was so awesome and wonderful and totally disorienting. I was just so, I obviously totally felt like the old guy. I was just happy to be tagging along with my cousin who is 15, 16 years my junior, and she's brilliant and love her. And like I say, she went to Florida, bowled for Florida, got her undergrad as well as her MBA there. And that was a really, really nice homecoming.
I think what you said about Gainesville being not too close, but just far enough. Like that is still very true for a lot of our students today, that it's just a car ride home, whether it's like 2 hours or 5 hours is just within reach. And I think that that's why a lot of students still go to UF. We're from Florida. And, as we climb in the rankings of the US, public institutions, right? The University of Florida, our degrees become more valuable. And it does become a little bit harder to get in.
Gainesville also, it's definitely a small town. You're not going to mistake it for a bustling metropolis, but it's close enough to major cities that it's not, a couple hours from several major cities.
Yeah.
And it does punch above its weight as far as, I guess any college town will draw in amenities that you don't normally see in small towns.
Right. What kind of advice or suggestions would you give current and future Florida Gators, and given your experiences throughout life?
It's a cliche, but I will say you just got to follow your heart. Go after what interests you and what interests you in the moment. Don't even really question it. Don't try not to be so self-conscious or so wrapped up in what other people think to not explore whatever it is. I mean, if it's legal or at least if you can get away with it. But you won't know what will be of value until many years later. And so in the moment, I think it's important to follow your passions and have some fun, and especially while you still have the energy and time. I don't know how old you are, Phil, but I think I'm at that stage. In fact, I was reading an article the other day saying that life satisfaction in general hits a trough at 47.
Oh.
And this is like cross culturally. They were doing a study on midlife crises.
Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. And guess I just turned 47.
Oh no.
So I mean, and some of it rang true because they say it's like the reckoning of like what you thought you were going to be and what you are, and realizing that there's really no more opportunity to reinvent yourself unless you're Madonna, just you're kind of molded by then. And so for younger Gators, anyone, I was a coach for many years also, so with at the high school level. So I'm used to doling out this kind of advice or getting these kinds of questions. And I will just say, follow your heart, follow your passions, do it 100%, and it will make sense eventually. Yeah. And just don't worry especially don't worry if you're not making any money at it. Lord knows you're not going to make real money for years anyway.
For sure. Such good, solid advice for our listeners. Before we end our chat today, any shout outs you'd like to make to old friends, Gators, or colleagues?
I already gave one to Tom Krinsky, but I'll also Forrest Griffith was also in the WRUF newsroom. Both those guys taught me more about life, the universe, and everything, in the course of 2 short years, not even 2, maybe it was 18 short months.
Yeah.
But it was really about how to connect with people and get their trust and get them to open up to you very quickly. Yeah. And especially when no one's got a good impression of the media. If you ask people what their impression of the media is, it's always negative. And that was the same back then too. Maybe it's gotten worse, but still and that served me very well in my car business career. No one's got a good opinion of car salesmen either. Yeah. But you got to be able to pick up a conversation and get people to open up and get them to answer a bunch of questions and to and there's a time limit. And in both cases, well, I guess in all cases, there's a finite goal. You need to put a story together. You need to get the facts. You need to sell a car. You need to, there's something you got to get to, and yet you have to kind of soft pedal it. I mean, the other party is trying to get somewhere too. So I guess, just try to find that alignment getting to know them, and both getting to where you need to go. That was invaluable experience, and I learned it all in that WRUF newsroom.
Yeah.
You know, and I had a blast doing it, and I had no idea, of course, because again, I was just thinking I thought it was so cool that I was on the radio or on TV, but so yes, Tom Krinsky and Forrest Griffin, wherever you are, here's to you.
Cheers. Oh, Phil, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really, really appreciate it. Listening to your story, hearing about your journey, and I'm sure all of our listeners really appreciate the advice that you gave, and I'm sure the people you shouted out to very much appreciate you shouting them out too. So thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful night, and go Gators.
Thank you, Phil. Go Gators.